بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد الخلق أجمعين. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وارحمنا واهدنا واهد بنا وعافنا وربنا وارزقنا وبارك لنا اللهم فيما أعطيتنا وارحمنا وأنت الرحمن وأنت الرحيم. اللهم يا ربنا اجعل القرآن العظيم ربيع قلوبنا ومبلغ علمنا. اللهم ربنا علمنا منه ما جهلنا وذكرنا منه ما نسينا. اللهم ربنا اجعل به جلاء همومنا وأحزاننا. اللهم يا ربنا ارفع به شأننا. اللهم ربنا اجعله شفاعة لنا يوم القيامة يا رب العالمين. Inshallah, today we continue with Surah Al-Qasas, the stories. We arrived at the ayah number 25. Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam exited Egypt. He's scared. يترقب after this man came in from the castle, from Bani Israel, from Bani Fir'aun, from the Millah or the people of Fir'aun, came in and warned them. He said, people are looking for you. Be careful. Be on the lookout. He took off. He had no food with him. He had no drink with him. He headed out east to north of Najd to the area of Midian. And then when he arrived there, he found the two women are standing aside with a herd of sheep. They are just sitting there, making sure that the sheep do not approach the water. And they asked them, what's your problem? What's your issues? They said, we don't give water to our sheep until the herders are finished giving the water to their herds. And then we go and get the water. So what he said, he gives siqa, he gave water to them, and he made the dua. ثم تولى إلى الظل. He went towards the shade, and then he made the dua. قال رب إني لما أنزلت إلي من خير فقير. He says, Ya Allah, I am to whatever that you drop upon me or bring upon me or bring from above. أنزل من النزول upon me. فقير, I am needy. And then while he's doing this is the ayah number 25. فجاءته إحداهما تمشي على استحياء. One of them came to him. فجاءته, she came to him, walking على استحياء. On what shape? استحياء, from حياء. We use the word استحى, يستحي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used this word in Surah Al-Baqarah, where he says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا بَعُوضَةً فَمَا فَوْقَهَا. Haya is a very well-known word in Arabic, Urdu, and somehow we really don't understand exactly what it means as an explanation. I will try, inshallah, to explain it the best way I can. Some people explain it as to walking with shyness. Some people, having shyness in the way they walk. But the truth is, haya is different than khajal. Khajal is shy. Haya is different. Haya is that for somebody to do something or to act upon something, knowing and having the thoughts in his head or taken under account in his head, in his behavior. What is the other person think of him? That's called haya. You act, you walk, you behave in a way that you taken under account what is the other person think of you or looks at you while you are doing this action, you're doing this deed. This is called haya. For instance, the woman was walking ala istihya, upon istihya, upon a method of istihya. She was looking out, she was watchful, she was putting under consideration what does Musa alayhi salam thinks of her, the way she was walking. Like an example, in this case here. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he was in seventh heaven, in Mi'raj, when he went back and forth, the times that Musa alayhi salam used to tell him, go up there, reduce the amount of salah, 50 times too much. So he went back and forth until it became 5. And all the way towards the end, what did he say to Musa alayhi salam? Inni astahi min Rabbi. I have haya from my Rabb, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like, what if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to think of me if I go up again one more time, reduce the 5 salah to even less? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala think going to think of me? That's called haya. When a woman she has haya, she is acting and behaving as putting into consideration, she is considering or she is questioning what is the other person looks at her. How does he look at her? Does he look at her as to she is loose or she is doesn't have any demeanor, good khuluq, good behavior, or he thinks highly of her? She acts upon this thought. So that's called haya. And haya could be between a person and another person, could be from a woman towards a man, could be a man towards a woman, or could be from even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards people. إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not hold under account what people think of him when he brings the example of the ba'uda, of the mosquito. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not care what people think. People objected at the time. They said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Aziz, the Jaleel, the one who created heaven and earth, is talking, bringing an example, such a small example as a mosquito. That's too small to be mentioned. He's way too high and too benevolent and too great for him to mention in a small example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He does not care what people think of him or think of this example by he thinking of of him, his nature, whatever, by bringing this example. He doesn't care, right? إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا. So فجاءته, came to him, إحداهما, one of them, one of these two women, تمشي, walking, على استحياء. So she was not walking على حياء, she was not making حياء, على استحياء. She's spending an extra effort for her to walk on this shape of haya. She is very considerate, spending a lot of effort for her to make sure that this person, Musa alayhi salam, what does he think of her the way that he did, when she was walked in. She said to him, إن أبي يدعوك ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا. My father making da'wah to you, is inviting you for him to give you a reward of because what you make siqaya for us, because what the water you have given to our herd of sheep. فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ, when he came to him, and the story here says that because of the scholars talked about ala istihya, this type of haya that she was walking with, is that she wanted to walk in front of Musa alayhi salam, but Musa alayhi salam told her, said, no, I will walk ahead of you, you walk behind me, and the direction where I need to go, you throw a stone at the direction where I need to go, so I will follow that path without you walking in front of me. That is from the good behavior, the good demeanor, the good action of a good gentleman, a person who does not have the woman walk in front of him, and he will be watchful to her. She actually walked behind him. But again, there's the ayah doesn't say anything about the specific incident. It's just something the scholars talked about as because the reference to istihya, because she's spending an extra effort for her to walk in this haya way, spending an effort, istihya. Musa alayhi salam arrived to the father of the two women, وقص عليه فلما جاءه وقص عليه, he told him the story, al-qasas, stories of what he's been through, who he is. He's Musa alayhi salam. He's from Bani Israel. He spent his life being raised in the castle of Pharaoh, and then how he ended up killing that person from the Coptic guy, and then he ended up exiting in fear, went out of the desert. The rest of the story, everything else. قال, and this person, supposedly, people are different. Who is this guy? What's his name? The father, some scholars said his name is Shu'aib, as the name of the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the prophet of Midian. Now, he cannot be Shu'aib as the original prophet. Some people actually said he is, but that's a mistake, because the timeline between Shu'aib, which was way before that period of time, they said he cannot be from Bani Israel, he cannot be from that period of time. It's got to be something else, somebody else. The important issue is that the father is nameless in this surah. We don't know what his name is, but he's referring to the father of the two women. and he is a good, benevolent guy. And he told him, he says, لا تخف نجوت من القوم الظالمين. Maybe his name is Shu'aib, as they said that his name is, or some other scholars said that his name is something else. His name is Thiron, as the nephew of Shu'aib, the Prophet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alam. And that is the most of the scholars actually said that he is actually Shu'aib. Um, you know, Allahu alam. It's not likely that he is the same Prophet, Shu'aib alayhi salam. That's completely somebody different. So he said to him, لا تخف, do not be afraid. نجوت من القوم الظالمين. You have been saved, or you are saved, من النجاة, from the transgressors, from the people who are transgressors. You're talking about Fir'aun and his mala and his group, you know. So قالت إحداهما, one of these two girls, are looking from the side of the tent, from behind the curtain, supposedly. Obviously, we know this from Hayat. She was sitting there having a meeting with him and her father. He sat there with her father, their father, the two women father, and he told him all the stories, what he's been through. And then the next thing is that he told him, you are saved from the transgressors. In this area here, Fir'aun has no power and he has no control over here. One of them stepped in and she said, Ya abati istajirhu, O my father, hire him, from ujra. Yastajir. Yastajir is to rent or to hire. Stajir, as to hire him from money, for pay. Inna khayra man istajart, the best the best you can hire, man istajart, al-qawiyu al-amin, the strong and the trustworthy. So from this ayah, it's been it's been taken as an example, as the best person you can hire. And these are words of wisdom in the Quran, in the mouth of this woman who said, hire him, because the best you can hire is al-qawi, the strong, al-amin, the trustworthy. A lot of scholars, advise to hire somebody who has strength, because he's able to do the work that you ask him to do in his field, as well as he's trustworthy. You can trust him on the job that he's going to do. Now, if you notice in the surah here, it's not talking about the strength of Musa alayhi salam. That's why people, or the scholars from the Israeliyat, talked about the fact that, or one of the stories about him is that the well of the water, it had a big stone that took 3 or 4. Some other scholars said, some other historians said that actually 10 people to lift the rock, and Musa alayhi salam lifted it all by himself from his strength. So she witnessed his strength, as he's strong, he's able. But does the surah talk about the strength of Musa alayhi salam? It doesn't. But maybe it shows, because the way how he cut himself through the other herders, he made a turn for himself, and he was able to push the herd of these two women, and for them to get water. So they notice his strength, notice his ability to do the job, to give water to the herd earlier on. Qawiyu, strong, amin, trustworthy. Qala, the man, which is the father, stepped in and he says, Inni uridu, I want, irada, uridu, I want to, and unkihaka, unkih, to give you in marriage, from the word nikah. Nikah is marriage. Unkihaka ihda ibnatayya hatayn. He says, I want to give you one of my 2 daughters in marriage. Ala an ta'jurani thamaniya hijaj, for you to work for me 8 hijaj. Hijjah, as we talk about the word hajj, is a period of time that comes back in a cycle. And that is what some of the scholars talked about as the meaning of the word hajj. Hajj is the cycle of the time that comes once a year. This is the ritual of hajj, like that. He says, I want to hire you I want to give you one of my daughters in marriage, for exchange for you to work for me for 8 years. 8 years. فَإِنْ أَتْمَمْتَ عَشْرًا, if you have completed 10 instead of the 8, and he says a minimum of 8, I will give you one of my daughters for you to marry. and for you to work for me 8 years. But if you completed the 10, فَمِنْ عِنْدِكَ, that would be from you. But I only require from you an 8. But to perfect them, it's 10. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ أَشُقَّ عَلَيْكَ, and I don't want, وَمَا أُرِيدُ, I don't want to, أَنْ أَشُقَّ عَلَيْكَ, من الشقة, and I don't want to make things difficult, to make things not easily doable. ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصالحين, and you will find me uh, um, ستجدني, you will find me from the good doers. And in other words, he's offering him the job for exchange to get married to one of the two daughters. And you will find me from the good doers. I'm not, trying to cheat you. I'm not trying to do anything bad to you, whatever. You will find me from the good doers. قال ذلك بيني وبينك أيما الأجلين قضيت فلا عدوان علي والله على ما نقول وكيل. Immediately, Musa alayhi salam said, قال ذلك بيني وبينك. That's between you and I. You said, as I agreed. أيما الأجلين. Each one of those two ajal, either the 8 or the 10. It's not just between the both of us, as to an agreement. Which one I complete, the 8 or the 10? You're satisfied with 8, or you're satisfied with 10, either way. And that's between the both of us. فَلَا عُدُوَانَ, there's no transgression upon me, for me to take either one. وَاللَّهُ عَلَى مَا نَقُولُ وَكِيلٌ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a witness for each one of those, for this meeting or this kind of agreement. Wakil, he's the wakil, he's the attorney, he is the one who takes charge of this meeting, and he's the one who's witnessing this. The scholars talk about which period of time did Musa alayhi salam choose. Did he complete the 8? Did he complete the 10? There's one hadith here on Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, the Hibr, the faqih of the Ummah, where this is Sa'id ibn Jubayr, and this is in Sahih Bukhari. Sa'id ibn Jubayr was walking and he met a Jewish man, and the Jewish man asked him, he says, which period of time did Musa alayhi salam spend over in Madian? Was it 8 years or 10 years? And then eventually Sa'id ibn Jubayr says, I don't know, let me ask Ibn Abbas. So he went to Ibn Abbas, he told him, he says, قَضَى أَكْثَرُهُمَا وَأَطْيَبُهُمَا. He said he spent the most and the most tayyib, the best, which is the 10 years, the complete. And وكان قضى أبر الأجلين وأتمهما وأوفاهما ولا شك أن هذا هو الأليق برسول من رسل الله سبحانه وتعالى. He completed the longest, the most perfect, and it is likely for a prophet from the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Musa alayhi salam, for him to spend the 10 years instead of the 8 overall. What happened here is that this is a story of a path of a good doer, a path of somebody, as the scholars talked about. He's in preparation for him to receive the message. He will be receiving the message after the 10 years. The scholars talked about he was 30 years old when he arrived in Midian. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him for 10 years as to, to do two things for him. Number one is that Musa alayhi salam has to spend a period of time while he is a herder. Herding, sheep or being a herder is one of the most basic lessons for people to learn to care for, group as preparation for him to lead his ummah. As a prophet in training, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will entrust him, and people will entrust him on sheep. And the sheep, he has to care for them. He has to make sure they're well, they come back from a group. The wolves do not eat them. He will learn the patience. He will learn the, the timing for him to keep up his time, for him to have sabr, to have, most important thing is to have patience on, leading these group of sheep, number one. Number two is, as well as you notice that Musa alayhi salam has the, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ, when he reached his, strength, the maximum strength and the maximum of his physical ability. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him hukman wa ilman. He gave him wisdom and he gave him knowledge. However, he needs to have more. He needs to have the patience for him to lead his ummah. And obviously, he was strong and able. With the clue here for two things, that when he pushed that wakiz to that Coptic guy, or he hit him ever so slightly in the behavior on his own eyes, actually ended up killing the guy. So he needed to tame. He needed to have more taming, more regulation as far as his behavior overall. That is as far as Musa alayhi salam. So he needed to have a little bit more schooling, a little bit more, of a good behavior. He needed to have more patience and to learn, and that would be 10 years of his behavior. That's number one. Number two is Musa alayhi salam needed to have a wife. And subhanAllah, you notice, and this is the example I always give you brothers. If, let's say, that Musa alayhi salam was 30 years old, and by the time when he arrived in Madian, and he left at 40, when he received the message. So you can imagine that he spent about 25% of his life for him, for him to, as in exchange for him to get a good, pious, good, decent wife. So I always tell the brothers, subhanAllah, use Musa alayhi salam as an example. How much money and how much effort would you spend for you to get a good, decent wife that she'll be on your side, she will support you, she will be more like second, more like an ease for you to spend your life with? Would you spend quarter of your life working hard for you to achieve that goal? Musa alayhi salam exchanged 10 years in his life to work as a herder in exchange for him to get a wife. What a great example of the piety and the great example of the placement for somebody to work and for him to get married. The importance of marriage in the life of an overall Muslim, including a messenger, one of the greatest messengers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent here on the face of this earth, Musa alayhi salam. Also, they talked about another example. When somebody who's in the stage of the greatness of the piety and the placement of Musa alayhi salam, when he's offered for him to spend 8 years to complete the task, or 10 years for that matter, he chose the 10, he chose the more, because this is actually, for him to do more for the whatever he got, which is actually he got the wife. So he spent more time, the 10 instead of the 8, as to give you an example of his demeanor and of his khuluq and his behavior. 10 years went by. He learned the patience. He got a wife. We don't know how many children he got. It's not mentioned here. But in the ayah here, وَقَالَ لِأَهْلِهِ, he said to his family in the next ayah here, you know what he has done. So Allahu Alam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that the time that he spent in there, he achieved the goal of to get to a point that he's ready to receive the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also to make the changes in his heart and his mind, as to when he left, he was still between the castle of Musa, the castle of Fir'aun alayhi la'na, Fir'aun, and he's been Bani Israel, he's been an Israelite. So right now he spent 10 years outside. He refreshed his abilities. He got his strength. He got his wisdom. He got his patience. And now he headed back to Egypt, on the road back. Ayah number 29. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلِ. When Musa qada means to complete, to finish. Al-ajal, the time, the period of time. فَلَمَّا قَضَى مُوسَى الْأَجَلَ وَسَارَ بِأَهْلِهِ. When Musa alayhi salam qada the ajal, he finished the whole 10 years complete. And by the way, here is not mentioned which time he spent. The scholars talk about the 10 because it's more likely for somebody like Musa alayhi salam to spend. It's more, suitable for his situation, for his, being a prophet. When he completed the period of time, which is here we say the 10 years, and Sara bi ahlihi, he walked with his family. We don't know who was it. Definitely it was his wife. Was it any children? Somebody else? With his whole family, everybody that's with him. آنس من جانب الطور نارا. He saw from the side of the Tur, the mountain of Tur. He saw a nar, fire. He saw fire. And look at the word anasa. Anasa. Min al ins. Ins is something not scary. Something that is, yetnasu bihi is kind of founded familiarly, nice, suitable. You say anas, and from it, some scholars talk about the word the ins and the jinn. The jinn is obviously, we know, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created from fire. The ins is that ya'nasu ba'dahum ba'da. They approach each other and they like the company of each other. You notice how mankind, we always stick together in groups. We live together in cities and metropolises and villages. Nobody just kind of, we don't, stay alone by ourselves away from population. It's actually, we stick together. We make uns to each other. We make friends. We like to converse with each other and on like that. It's called ins. So Musa alayhi salam was heading back, فلما سار بأهله, on the side of the Tur. The Tur is a very famous place, as we always tell you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala named 4 holy places in the Quran. These four of them, 3 of them are well known, which is the first one to exist here on the face of this earth is Mecca, or the Kaaba, as the holy place. The second one is Bayt al-Maqdis in Jerusalem, or Bayt al-Maqdis today. And the third one, which is the Masjid al-Aqsa, basically. The third one in Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, which is the third holy place. And the second one in the Muslim ritual, the Muslim deen. The fourth one is the Tur. But the Tur is hidden from us. We don't know where it is. We know the approximate area that is in the Sinai desert. But the place of it exactly, we don't know. But we know it's a holy place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called it in Surah Taha, say, فِي الْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed Musa alayhi salam that you are in the valley Muqaddas. That's Qudsiyya. That's Muqaddas. It's holy. Tuwa, to cross. You're crossing that place. So when he arrived next to the Tur, the mountain, this is where he saw fire. But that fire was not scary there. It's not like he's being cautious. He's like, what is going on? Something scary. It's the opposite. He thought of it as friendly. He thought of it as min ins anas tunara. Said maybe there's somebody on it, maybe whatever it is. فقال لأهله, he said to his to his family, in umkuthu, stay. Makatha yamkuth, stay here. Don't go away. Don't move. You stay here. Inni anastu nara. I had made ins. I found a friendly place, friendly something that's not scary, that has fire, nearby. لعلي آتيكم. لعل حرف رجاء. Hopefully, لعل, hopefully, inshallah, as we say today, hopefully, maybe, in a hopeful way. آتيكم منها بخبر. Maybe, or hopefully, I will bring from this fire, بخبر, some news. أو جذوة من نار, or a little flame, جذوة, little flame from fire. لعلكم تصطلون. Maybe you will have اصطلاء. اصطلى يصطلي is that for you to stand next to a fire and for you to feel the effect of it as to warm yourselves, right? So يصطلي is that for you to feel the warmth or the effect of the something that you're being exposed to. Like يصطلي العذاب, for him to be exposed to torture. يصطلي النار, for him to feel the warmth of the fire. Here for them to warm themselves. Musa alayhi salam finished his period and finished his time, the period that he promised Shu'aib to be there in exchange for the marriage of his daughter. He took off with his family. He's walking in the middle of the desert. The Tur, the mountain there next to him, he found a fire. He camped. It was late, obviously, where he could see the fire. He looked up. He's looking over. He's camping somewhere in the desert. He looks up and he finds a fire that was not scary, something that is kind of give him warm feeling. So he said, you stay here to his family. I will take off. I'll bring for you a flame, and I'll get some news. Obviously, the news of what's happening, what's going on, who is there, who's not there. He's been absent now for 10 years away from Egypt. So he takes off. فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا, when he came to the fire, this is ayah number 30. فَلَمَّا أَتَاهَا, when he came to it, نُودِيَ. نودي مبني على المجهول is actually the ضمير here, the reference to unknown. Nudia was called upon. Who called him? Unknown. He was called upon. Nudia. من شاطئ الوادي الأيمن, from the side. شاطئ is the beach or the side of the right valley from the mountain. في البقعة المباركة, in the buq'ah, in the spot. Buq'ah means spot. Mubarakah has barakah. There is a spot over there on this right side from the right valley, the beach or the side of the valley. There is a holy spot. There's a spot Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave more barakah in, has more benefit, more good in it than the rest of the whole valley. This is called buqa, this spot, the holy spot. Mubarakah. Min ash-shajara, from the side of the tree, from the edge of the tree. And what was the calling? Nudiya, he was called upon. And Ya Musa inni ana Allahu Rabbul Alameen. Ya Musa, oh Musa, Ya Musa, harfu nida. Ya Musa, oh Musa, inni ana Allahu Rabbul Alameen. I am Allah, Rabbul Alameen, the Rabb, the Murabbi of all Alameen. Alameen, as to here, means mankind and jinn kind. The alameen, the ones who have ilm, the ones who have the ability to choose to do good or to do bad. Alameen. The ayah number 31. وَأَنْ أَلْقِ عَصَاكَ. Another thing was he was called to do. Throw your stone, throw your cane, your stick, your cane. Musa alayhi salam learned a habit, all herders would do, is that he would have a cane because he's using it continuously to point to his sheep or to push his sheep in one direction or the other direction, whatever it is, and he would be able to defend himself with it or to lean on it, as explained to us in Surah Taha. وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى قال هي تلك عصاي أتكئ عليها قال هي عصاي is my stick أتكئ عليها, I lean on it. وأهش بها على غنمي, and I make hash, I gather my ghanam, my sheep with it. ولي فيها مآرب أخرى, and I have with my cane another purposes, more purposes. I use it for different things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with that sound, with the voice that he heard, throw that cane. فلما رآها, when he threw it, he saw it, تهتز, shaking. هز يهز, shaking. تهتز, it's shaking. كأنها جان, as if it is Jan. Jan is another name for a snake. Is that she goes crazy. Is that she is 1 second she is visible, the other second is not visible from the speed. Is very fast moving snake. When he فلما رآها, when he saw the cane, he threw the cane immediately. When he was told to throw the cane, he threw it. When he saw it moving as fast as a snake, وَلَّا مُدْبِرًا, وَلَّا, he ran away, مُدْبِرًا, he gave his back to the cane and he ran away. وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ, and he never looked back. وَلَمْ يُعَقِّبْ مِنَ الْعُقْبَةِ, he never even looked back. Ya Musa, O Musa, أقبل. Ya Musa, walk forward, do not walk back, do not walk away. أقبل, من أقبل من قبول, from the front, go to your front, go to your, towards it. أقبل. ولا تخف, do not be afraid. إنك من الآمنين, you are from the safe ones. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he, and this is an amazing event, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shown him the miracle of how the nature of the cane turns from wood into a living snake. So when Musa alayhi salam, he was not, he was not aware of what's going to happen to the cane when he threw it. He was told to throw the cane, as to for him to understand, to fathom this miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bestowing upon him, or the ability for him to control this miracle, which is his own cane. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered him to throw the cane with no prior warning. watch out or be careful, whatever. No, he told him throw the cane. Immediately, when the cane was on the ground, it turned into, with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it turned into a snake. Obviously, somebody who had the wood cane in his hand and turned into a snake, he's scared. He is not understanding the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Walla mudbira. He turned away, walking so fast and so quick away from the snake. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya Musa, aqbil, says, walk forward. Do not be scared. Wala takhaf. Do not be scared. You know? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Innaka min al-aminin. You are from the safe ones. This snake will never harm you, will never hurt you. You know? Isluk yadaka, salaka yasluk, to pass his, from salaka tariq, as to pass his way, fi jaybik, in your jayb. The jayb is the area in your thawb that you put them inside, the thawb like this. This is called jayb, this area here. So put your hand in your jayb, in your thawb, in your dress, in your qamis, in your shirt. تخرج بيضاء. It comes out white, glowing, with no harm will come up on it. It's not like it'll caught on fire, there's any harm or anything will hurt it. من غير سوء, with no harm will come up on it. واضمم إليك جناحك من الرهب. واضمم, gather towards you, جناحك, your thawb, or your hands like this, cover yourself like this, من الرهب, from the the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this will stop the cane, stop the hand from glowing again. When you bring it again, the hand will stop glowing. فَذَانِكَ بُرْهَانَانِ, those two are true proofs, مِنْ رَبِّكَ إِلَى فِرْعَوْنَ, to Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him the two first signs to Fir'aun. Their totality of 9, as we all know. 2 are to prove the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the miracles Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he would make, which is the cane in the hand. The other 2, the sinin, waqtin fi thamarat, is that the drought and the poverty. And then the other 5 will become, the rest of them, the punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once he did not believe. The frogs and the lice and the locust and the blood and the tufan and the flood, obviously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those 2 are burhanani, these 2 proofs from your Rabb, ila Fir'aun, to Fir'aun, wa mala'ihi, and his establishment, and his group, and the ones who are in his support, the ones who are there. Innahum kanu qawman fasiqeen. These are qawman fasiqeen. They're the ones who crossed the line. They are in the word of fisq. They are no longer in the straight path. They went outside of the straight path. They are transgressors. They're not doing well. Fisq, by the way, and we know the word originally comes in from the seed inside of the date. When it goes outside of its place, it's called fasaqatin nawat. Fasaqat. So anytime and every time somebody goes outside of his place, that's called fisq. Sometimes a Muslim can be fasiq. For instance, they call a Muslim who drinks, they call him fasiq because he went outside of his place. A man who does not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as kafir, we call him also can be called fasiq. He went outside of his place where he's supposed to be as a believer. He went outside, he became fasiq. Somebody who is, sometimes could be small fusuq, sometimes big fusuq. So fisq could be anybody who went outside of his place, outside of the place he belongs to. Could be a Muslim, could be kafir, could be mushrik, could be any of those. Fir'aun was fasiq. He went outside of the realm he was supposed to be. He's supposed to be a good doer. He's supposed to be a good leader. He's supposed to do good on the face of this earth, not to transgress. He went outside that place. He's fasiq. And not only him. Innahum, they were, not Fir'aun. Remember, Fir'aun is not alone. Fir'aun has a group, has establishment with him. They're the ones who are assisting him. He is empowering them, and they are empowering him. They have this relationship, and subhanAllah, every tyrant here on the face of this earth is never alone. Every tyrant has a group of people, has establishment, has a multiple layers of of people in different positions. They are helping him. They are assisting him to do the bad he's doing. That is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إنهم كانوا قوما فاسقين. Musa alayhi salam immediately in the surah here different than the Surah Taha. In Surah Taha he made the dua, the famous dua, قال ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي, for the rest of it. Here is not talking about this concept, this idea of what Musa needs for himself. Over there, Musa alayhi salam is talking about what he needs for himself. He says, قال ربي اشرح لي صدري, Allah, expand my chest. I don't want to have this thing to be gham on me, to be burdensome on myself. واشرح لي صدري ويسر لي, and ease my affairs. واحلل عقدة من لساني, and loosen a tie in, or a knot in my tongue, and make my brother Harun akhi, like this. Here is a different perspective. He says, قال رب إني قتلت منهم نفسا فأخاف أن يقتلون. He says, oh my Rabb, oh my Allah, I killed one of them from Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him, go to Fir'aun and his mala. They are fasiqeen, they are bad doers, they're evil doers, they're outside of the realm where they need to be, where they have to be. He says, Ya Allah, I killed one of them, and I'm very fearful they're going to kill me. Because you could tell the batash, you can tell the nature of Fir'aun and his people. They're not going to even wait to allow him to talk. The minute they see him, they will execute him right there on the spot, because he killed one of them 10 years earlier. Look at the path. Some people will ask, what happened to Musa? Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning the killing of that Coptic guy? Why did he go outside of the Medina for 10 years? Why? What's the story? Why is it such a, mentioned such details of what has taken place? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to put us in the frame of mind when Musa alayhi salam is standing, and will be standing in front of Fir'aun with a state of fear. But where did that fear come from? Fear is coming upon him because he's a man. He's still a man, even though he's a messenger. He's a messenger man. So Musa alayhi salam, just like the rest of the messengers, are basically, you can say that they are men, they're acting like men, they have fear in their hearts, they fear for their existence, they fear others or what they could do to them. But at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them this duty and the obligation for them to give the message to their adversaries, to the evildoers here on the face of this earth, and to become messengers to these people. And if you notice the behaviors, just like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you could see the aspects of his personality being a man, a human being. He's as a husband, as a father, as a leader of his own people, as he was loving and caring and all that as a human being. And you could see the other side of him as carrying the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the evildoers and what they do, and on and on. You could see the difference in like the feelings and behaviors and on from this kind of concept. What got Musa alayhi salam here is that the incidental killing of that Coptic guy 10 years ago, he ran away scared for his life, scared of what he's been through. He landed in Midian. Look at and you don't want to say as a coincidence. Look at how events turned out. He met the two girls. He was invited by their father to give him, and the father gave him one of the girls to get married to in exchange for 10 years. Things calmed down. Things are cooled. He learned patience. He learned leadership. His personality got developed where he's ready to accept the message. He headed back. Where does the fear come from? 10 years earlier. Where's the calmness come from? From the 10 years he spent, in Midian. Where's the patience? Where's the authority and the place of leadership? Came in from that period of time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him all that, and he gave him the hukm and the ilm earlier on when he reach his maximum physical strength. And then at that point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala casted or gave him the message. Go to Fir'aun, and his people, they're fasiqeen. He says, I'm afraid for my life. I killed one of them and they're going to kill me. And he, at this point, he asked for something else. He says, وَأَخِي هَارُونُ هُوَ أَفْصَحُ مِنِّي لِسَانًا. And my brother Harun has fasaha. His tongue is more fluent. It's better to explain. And say, رَجُلٌ فَصِيحٌ. Man can explain things. He is eloquent with his speech. He's more reaching. He's better to talk about things. From me, lisan, and his tongue is better for him to explain things and talk about things. فَأَرْسِلْهُ مَعِي. Send him with me. رِدْءًا يُصَدِّقُنِي. Rid'an, as rid is a cover or a form of protection or form of a help, that to be on my side. يُصَدِّقُني, to substantiate what I'm going to say, to be an enforcer on my side, to believe or to push the concepts that what I'm going to be talking about. إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَن يُكَذِّبُونَ. I am afraid for them to deny me and to call me a liar and to deny believing in me and to reject me. What is the fear of Musa alayhi salam? He's afraid for him to be killed, number one, and yaqtulun, number one, and number two is that he's fearful for him and yukaththibun, for them to deny and reject me. Two fears. One is for him his own physical body, as for him to be killed, as he's a human being is to be killed, and for him to be denied the message or denied the saying, or for him to be called a liar as a prophet. Two different aspects of it. قال, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to him, and he's the one who is the one with the voice. Nudiya, over earlier on, he was called upon with unknown. Nudiya, he was called upon him, and now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know he is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he said that. He says, إِن سَنَشُدُّ عَضُدَكَ. We will strengthen, we will pull your adud. Adud is the lower part of the arm. This part is called adud, from the strength. You notice that the adud, this part of the arm, it signifies the maximum or showing of strength as a metaphor for we will strengthen you, we strengthen your existence, we strengthen your presence. Sanashuddu, shadd is to pull, adud. It's a metaphor in the Arabic language. Bi akhika, with your brother. So in other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that we answered your dua. We will give you your brother, and we will strengthen your position. We will strengthen your situation that you're going to be in. وَنَجْعَلُ لَكُمَا سُلْطَانًا. And we will make for both of you sultan, strength, place of authority. فَلَا يَصِلُونَ إِلَيْكُمَا. They will never reach you. They will never come near you. With what? بِآيَاتِنَا, with our signs and our signals. أَنْتُمَا, you, وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَكُمَا, and whomever will follow you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you and everybody who follows you, al-ghalibun, you will be the defeaters. You will be the victorious. Min al-ghalab. Ghalaba yaghlibu is the one who defeats, the one who is victorious. فَهُنْتُمُ الْغَالِبُونَ. Musa alayhi salam, in the ayah number 33, he voiced his concern. He says, Ya Allah, I killed one of them, they're going to kill me. And Ya Allah, Harun is more eloquent with his speech. Send him with me to help me, to be on my side, for him to substantiate what I'm going to say. And I'm afraid for them, they will deny me, they will say I'm a liar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him exactly the enforcement he's asking for. قال سنشد عضدك بأخيك ونجعل لكما سلطانا فلا يصلون إليكما بآياتنا. He says, they will never reach you. We will strengthen your position with your brother. They will never reach out to you. They will never come near you. And you and the ones who are following you, you will be ghalibun. You will be defeated. It's more a comforting statement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that You will defeat Fir'aun. You will be victorious. It will take a long time. It will take a lot of effort. It will take the 9 signs. It will take a lot of work. It will take a lot of running away from Fir'aun. It will take a lot of different things, but you will be victorious. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a message to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And remember, this surah was revealed by the time he was leaving Mecca and Hijrah. And he was alone, him and Abu Bakr. And he's running away from the traps and the people who's going to follow him, from Mecca. You can imagine Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is revealing the surah to tell him that look what Musa alayhi salam has been through. It looked like it's hopeless. He came back as a single man alone by himself, with his family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed the responsibility upon him for him to reach out and send the message to Fir'aun. And yet it seems to be hopeless. Fir'aun is the strongest man in the whole country, possibly in the whole world, possibly in the whole earth, of his batush and his strength. And he is actually committed a crime with him. So he's afraid for his life. He's afraid for his position of what Fir'aun could do to him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, you and you, whomever follow you, you will be victorious. You, Ya Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you and you, the ones who follow you, you will be victorious. You will be ghalibun. You will make ghalab. You will defeat them. You are the defeaters. But this is a sequence of things you're going to have to go through. You're going to have to run in the desert. You're going to have to hide from your adversaries, your enemies, from the kuffar, like Fir'aun was running away. And for you to come back in the state, you can imagine, even though there's state of fear, but Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, with his calmness, he says to Abu Bakr, when Abu Bakr is looking out, he says, he's so cautious, they're going to catch up to them, and on and on. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when you think about two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is their third. What do you think is going to happen to them? Do you think possibly the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be able to do whatever they think? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there with us, just like what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there with Musa alayhi salam. He is always there on the side of the good doers. The good doers will always be victorious. It's just a matter of time. فلما جاءهم موسى, the ayah number 36, موسى بآياتنا, when Musa came to them with his ayat, with the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hand and the cane, قالوا, they said, the mala, not just Fir'aun and his mala and his establishment and his people and his supporters, they're there. ما هذا إلا سحر مفترى. This is nothing but a sihr. This is magic and sorcery. Muftara, made up. This is not true. This is not real. وَمَا سَمِعْنَا بِهَذَا فِي آبَائِنَا الْأَوَّلِينَ. He said, we never heard of this in our forefathers. Notice that how Fir'aun and his mala mentioned مَا سَمِعْنَا بِهَذَا فِي آبَائِنَا الْأَوَّلِينَ. We never heard of this with the stories of the forefathers. This is something new, never been before. We have no point of reference. We have no point in history to rely on to say, oh, you know what, this happened and back in history at this time, at that time, and we never heard of this. One of the reasons to deny is people say this is something new. We've never seen this before. We never heard of this before. History never recorded this before. This is something completely brand new. When we have points of history, and this is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here on the face of this earth, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make things in cycles, we go back as human beings, we go back in history, we rely on events, we rely on things that have taken place, and we make reference to it. We say, oh, you know what, this happened at that time, this happened at this time, this kind of similar to it, this kind of, something happened at that point, and on, like at this point. It makes it easier for us to understand and rely on. Fir'aun here rejected. He says, we never heard of this from our fathers. We've never seen this before. This must be a lie. This must be something that is not, it has no reference to it in any point in our history. Inshallah, we're going to stop at this point. We will continue on next week with the ayah number 37, inshallah. We're going to stop on the ayah number 36. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, inshallah, the knowledge of the Quran and the wisdom of the Quran. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the ones and grant us the ability for us to recite the Quran ana al-layli wa atraf al-nahar, in the mornings and at nights. And also may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from the ones who understand the meanings in it and understand also all the wisdom in the Quran, and give us, inshallah, Jannatul